we carried a report here yesterday. The battle for the regional chairmanship of the PNP in Region 6. Well, you will recall that the voting on Sunday was dogged by charges and counter charges, allegations of rigging and all kinds of things. And there was no winner declared on Sunday. Well, they have now done the recount and included spoilt ballots, ballots that were deemed spoilt on Sunday. And after the recount and inclusion of those ballots, Alan Bernard, Senator Alan Bernard, has won. Yes, he gained 131 votes to Jerome Darnell's 120. Jerome Darnell is a hospitality executive who took on Alan Bernard, who is said to be the candidate of choice for the Golding faction, the Mark Golding faction of the PNP. And Alan Bernard has now been declared the winner with 131 votes to Darnell's 120. There's also a little point here I must make. I gather one of our loyal listeners has done herself and her family proud. Dr. Judy Ann James, congratulations are in order. Yes, Dr. James has now earned a doctorate in leadership. She's currently the public relations officer at the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. And she recently earned a doctorate in leadership. Yeah? Congratulations, Dr. Judy Ann James. Yeah? Very good. Yeah, you're now doctor. Can't ramp with you. 24 minutes going up to 11. And we're going to go to OPM on air after this. To record, to hang on every word we say, and then reproduce it elsewhere and put their own spin on it. Yeah? Others come because they're haters, yes, and they come to see what they can somehow put a spin on, yeah, a negative spin on. So we know all different types are here, yeah, but the fact is they come. And why do they come? Because they know they reach an influence we have, and they would love to have that themselves, if I may indulge for a moment. This morning, I want to begin with the story of our lives and the lives of every Jamaican now, and it will be so for the immediate foreseeable future, and that is the water crisis, the severe drought we're having. You know, sometimes we focus on the politics and frankly, the majority of our people have absolutely no interest in that. What they're concerned about is how they're going to negotiate their day-to-day challenges, problems, issues. And the water crisis is one of those issues that you cannot avoid now. And that's where I want to start with this morning, because it's going to be with us for some time. As I said yesterday, we're only at the end of August, and the meteorologists are indicating that, listen, we may get some rain in the months of October and November, but not the usual amounts that would really break the back of the drought and put us in good stead for next year, all because of the El Nino effect. And this climate crisis that we're in, you know, is not looking as if it's going to get any better in the foreseeable future. Therefore, countries, businesses, other stakeholders are now required to plan. We now have to seriously consider how do we plan for this lingering climate crisis that will be upon us for some time to come. How do we continue to build? How do we continue to organize our homes, our communities, our businesses, our schools to make sure that we are resilient when it comes to the climate impacts that are affecting all of us? All of us. The difference is some people are better able to cope and to mitigate. So some people can afford the air conditioned unit, others simply can't. Yes. Having a fan now, given the heat, is a little relief because you're circulating hot air. So it has implications for the housing sector. Jamaica, it is said, is short of approximately 15,000 housing units per year. Yeah, if we are to make a significant dent in the shortage of affordable housing, what will be the mitigation inputs into planning and designing and building homes in the foreseeable future to take care of the climate crisis that is upon us now? Yeah. What changes will we now have to make? If you're a developer or the government planning to build homes, what are the structural and design changes you will have to make because of the climate crisis? And yesterday afternoon, Nationwide at 5 had a discussion. And a former president of the Realtors Association of Jamaica, Carleen Sinclair, made the point. It's not original, it has been spoken of, but now it takes on greater urgency. Ms. Sinclair says rainwater harvesting must now be a mandatory feature when planning and designing housing developments across Jamaica.
I believe that moving forward in a long-term way, that, well, we need to have that as a part of the building code where rainwater harvesting is mandatory for new developments. I believe it is important. A lot of, I mean, the water is just going to waste. We're also not recycling grey water as we should to deal with certain landscaping areas. You know, that water can be used to do things that we're using portable water to do.
Yes, we lose a lot of water, yeah, because we don't take seriously rainwater harvesting, except, and I see it in parts of rural Jamaica, where those residents have had this problem of water shortage from time immemorial. And if you go to certain communities, I can think of a number of them in Clarendon, St. Anne, that I've seen where they have implemented these water catchment facilities on their property to help them cope with the lack of water running through the pipes. Yeah? And that is something that more and more of us will have to seriously consider. Just like more and more of us now are seriously considering going solar, more and more of us will now have to consider rainwater harvesting and putting in place your water catchment facility to help you to cope. And Ms. Sinclair is saying now for housing developments, we've got to make it mandatory. Yeah, mandatory. We're reporting that short-term property rentals, yeah, the Airbnbs, yeah, are beginning to suffer as a result of the worsening drought and the prohibition orders, yeah. And we know the situation at the Mona Reservoir, below 50% capacity. Hermitage at 31%. I see one of our newspapers with a photograph overnight of a man, you know, sailing, boating inside the Hermitage Dam. Well, Ms. Sinclair says the availability of a tank, yes, has now become a priority question for persons seeking to rent property.
Right now, let's start with rentals. The first question they will ask you is whether or not there is a water tank. Not all properties can have a water tank. Most apartment complexes do have water tanks, but that service mainly the common facilities and not necessarily the apartment units. It's the first question. It may not, well, we haven't found yet it's the deal breaker for many because location is important in terms of commute to work and school. But it is now becoming the second question that is being asked for rentals.
Yes, because the water shortage is such a real problem for homeowners and renters. Yeah? So you ask, is there a tank there? Because you know it is a real problem. Yeah? Well, a local realtor, Dennis Hickey of Hickey Grand, he also addressed this issue, but he says he believes the government of the day must ensure proper water supply is provided in order to help deal with the shortage of the precious commodity.
If we're grappling with the cost of housing, we are going to be forcing the price up. Listen, I am on record of saying that where infrastructure is improved by the government, it makes it easier for developers to build, and there could be a mechanism to impact the price of housing solutions. So if you're going to ask every housing developer to put in the infrastructure, where's the water going to come? The major source has to come from the national budget, the national infrastructure. What you're talking about is not what I am not so concerned about water storage as I'm concerned about water supply.
An interesting point there by Dennis Hickey. And Nora, can you try and get him for me? Because I want to probe him a little about this. He makes a point that, listen, if we are going to make the provision of water, yeah, a mandatory feature in the design and planning and development process for housing units, then that is going to push up the price of the units. And frankly, we don't want to worsen that problem because we now have a problem where shelter, housing, accommodation is so expensive in Jamaica. So I want to probe him on that because you have to now consider who is going to do that. Is it for the state, as he seems to be suggesting? Yeah. What of the role of the private owner and the developer? How far should they go in assuming some of the costs involved? Yeah? I want to talk with Dennis Hickey on that. Nora, try and get him for me. More after the break.